Yeah, you like that new intro? I made it myself. I kept tweaking it to get it just how I wanted since I'm probably going to use it for the rest of the series. It took me longer to make than it does to make an actual episode of Gemology, mostly because I was fighting the limitations of Blender most of the time. Did you guys know I edit all these videos in Blender? I know, weird. You don't have to tell me. Speaking of intros, the Season 1 intro is the only time Steven ever eats a hot dog. If you remember the advertising for the show before it started airing, you'd probably remember the angle they were trying to push, that Steven would be eating hot dogs and donuts for the whole show. I think the pre-Season 1 advertising actually turned away a lot of potential viewers. Yeah, I'm stalling. I've honestly been dreading this one. Overall, I really enjoy Season 1 of Steven Universe. There aren't many episodes that I really dislike. This is one of them, though. I don't know if it's the worst episode in Season 1, but we'll see. Steven comes outside and leaves the door open, and in the next shot, it's closed. This error is so minor that I usually wouldn't point this out, but it happens twice in the same scene.
Have you seen Ranger Guy?
Excuse me?
Hearing Amethyst say something like, "excuse me," is really off-putting. Maybe that's just me. This has to be a visual reference to Mega Man, right? Like when you're selecting a stage, but instead of man, it's guy.
How'd that get in there?
You left your window wide open for things to just fly in and out.
Wait, is that the whole background for this episode? Onion got into Steven's house to steal Ranger Guy because he leaves his window open all the time? I genuinely didn't think of that until now.
Then why haven't you found my magic axe?
I haven't looked for it yet.
Another one of those lines that cements Amethyst as my favorite character. I see a lot of myself in this character. It scares me sometimes. Anyway, I'm curious about that axe. Is it some kind of legendary magic item or something boring like a +1 axe?
Sorry you walked through that door without a hose in your hand. Ready for battle! Ah!
Wait!
Steven stopped his dad right before he flooded the whole fucking town. Conservation of mass? What's that?
I lost something. Something precious.
Your innocence?
He didn't say virginity. I know some of you think that's what he meant. Get over yourselves. Though Steven nearly did lose his innocence 2 episodes ago when he got really old.
I lost Ranger Guy.
I love Greg's stunned silence. I find this hilarious because Amethyst had the same reaction when Steven brought up guys earlier.
Ranger Guy, one of my guys. You know, guys? How could you not remember?
Oh, was this the same day we ate that awesome funnel cake?
Huh?
I also like this conversation and how it juxtaposes the things kids remember versus what adults remember and what they each value. Fuck yeah, funnel cake sounds awesome. Though, I have to cut the praise a bit short because this scene and Greg's entire part in this episode feels like they're just padding for time. You could remove all the scenes with Greg and this episode would play out exactly the same way. The people that say Steven Universe has no filler are fucking lying to you. But there are better times and places for that rant. I'll keep that one in my back pocket. Smile sign, present and accounted for. Also, this is a weird angle for the arcade to be open. I've noticed that this show likes to open scenes in different locations looking in the direction that Steven would have been walking to get there, so it makes sense we'd be seeing the arcade from this direction. Also, that detail is really subtle, but I'm sure you'll start to notice it now that I've pointed it out.
He's like the worst guy. Maybe he comes with something cool. Taxes?
If you meet someone like Dave Guy who knows about taxes, get his advice. You'll be better off. Have any of you watching seen any gacha machines like this in the past, 5 years? Don't answer if you're from Japan, I know you got them there. I realize I'm a grown man, so I wouldn't be looking for things like that, but I can't remember the last time I've seen one. This scene sucks. I've gone over it several times, and there's literally nothing to talk about. Nothing happens, nothing is introduced except Yellowtail, and does anyone care about Yellowtail? It's also another one of those scenes where Steven talks to himself the whole time. Again, this whole scene is stalling for time. It could have been cut entirely, and the interaction between Steven and Onion could have happened in the arcade, and nothing would be lost.
Does Onion just sit around and wait for his dad all day? Ranger Guy!
I find this hilarious, and I don't know if that was intentional. Steven has this vaguely emotional thought about Onion and then suddenly remembers that he doesn't care and just wants Ranger Guy back.
I couldn't help but notice that you're a Guys fan.
This episode is 3 for 3 on doing the joke where Steven brings up guys and the response is a silent stare. This gag is probably the best thing in this episode, which isn't saying much.
Cut him a break. Maybe this is the year he gets his life together. Maybe he'll get a cool internship.
Those exist?
Pearl's replicator wand. You can use it to make copies of stuff.
Oh, here we go. First of all, that design is lame. Just gonna say that now, get that out of the way. Second, I'm not one to really get bent out of shape about the magic system in this show. It's famously soft, so I don't spend a lot of time trying to dissect its inner workings. If you're here for that, sorry, but you're in the wrong place. However, the show just presented something that turns the magic system on its head entirely. Replicator wand. This thing basically works for free, there's no energy spent to use it or whatever, and as far as this episode shows, it works on anything. So whenever we get to the gem war and stuff later in the show, where was this thing? Where are these when we start seeing homeworld technology? Is this the only one that exists? It's broken and overpowered and added to the list of weird gem things that only show up in Season 1.
I got up to look for Pearl's dumb axe, but found that instead. Then I replicated a bunch of garbage and stuffed it all in Pearl's room.
Amethyst has the best line reads in this whole show. Pearl is a close second, really close, but I can think up a couple times where she has a weak line delivery. Yep, that's Onion Scooter from Arcade Mania, and it's gone. You know what? I'm surprised to see Onion wearing a helmet, though. That's not a very Onion thing to do, I think.
What is it that you want?
You can hear a fire engine siren in the background. I don't know where Beach City's fire station is, but they got some damn fast response times. It makes sense with all the magic shit happening all the time.
Were you always this boring ranger guy?
Isn't it always sad when you go back to a toy or game you hadn't played in years and find that it's nowhere near as fun as you remember it being? I had that happen to me with Grand Theft Auto 5 like a year ago. That's another thing that I'm surprised about regarding the wand, that Onion can use it at all. I mean, it seemed like Greg could have been able to use the light cannon back in episode 2, but that's different. That one had an activation phrase. The wand kind of just, like, you think it and it happens. I don't know.
Can you please explain this mess?
I traded that replicator for Ranger Guy!
I still appreciate that Steven is honest nearly 100% of the time, but it doesn't matter when this is possibly the dumbest decision he's made so far in this show. Jesus Christ.
How do you move in this stuff?
Try and act like a rich duck.
I made a comment when I covered this episode in Crystal Sins that this DuckTales reference was dated and kids probably wouldn't get it, but since then there was a new DuckTales show. I still like the joke Family Guy did better, fuck you.
Oh my gosh, I just wanted some ice cream!
Hi, Greg.
I feel like I should ask why Greg is in this scene, but I already asked why he's in this episode at all. The answer is, I don't know. I'm gonna guess that Onion isn't quite aware of what the gems are, so he probably thinks they're just regular people, meaning his intention was to kill Garnet here. God damn. This is the most underwhelming ending to this conflict. Holy shit. Steven didn't even earn this victory, it was contrived. Though this whole conflict is contrived, what am I saying? And just like that, as soon as this overpowered magic bullshit is introduced, it's gone forever. It won't cause any more problems later in the show. But it still opens some plot holes since it never shows up in any historical flashbacks.
Now we have new memories. Horrible, horrible memories.
Yeah, I got some memories like that about this episode. Alright, I've waited long enough. I'm doing the filler rant right now. It hasn't come up yet because so far each episode I've covered has some importance to the show overall or are enjoyable in some way or another. They introduce a new character or a magic concept or a new power for Steven, or they can just be an episode like Tiger Millionaire that doesn't do any of that but has some really good character moments or world building when we get to it later in the show. What did we get in Onion Trade? Nothing but screen time for a character that ultimately doesn't matter and a new magic item that gets immediately destroyed and is never even as much as mentioned ever again. We are at a net zero from the beginning of this episode. That's filler. And don't try to pull the dictionary definition card on me. I've heard the excuse that it's not filler because Steven Universe is not an anime. Yes, Steven Universe is not based on any other source material, which is what a lot of anime did. They'd have to pad for time until the next chapter of the manga came out. That's anime filler. Got it. I've heard it before. However, Cartoon Network made the decision to order a number of episodes for each season, in Season 1's case, 52. The crew for Steven Universe had to come up with ideas for that many episodes and produce each and every one of them. Needless to say, you can't introduce something important or have massive emotional character development scenes in every single episode. That's just not realistic. So there are some episodes that are just there to fill the gaps between the good stuff. And that's fine, you can have potatoes between the meat of your story. There's nothing wrong with filler. Not every filler episode is bad, and not every bad episode of the show I would consider filler. Onion Trade ticks both of those boxes, unfortunately. I do not like this one. Okay, that's it. I'm glad I had some positive things to say about this one. I was worried it would just be me bitching and moaning the whole time, and nobody wants that. There won't be a lot of episodes like this, thankfully. If you want to see the next episode a week in advance, you can subscribe to my Patreon for just a couple bucks. The link is in the description. Shoutouts to my journeyman patrons, Fiore Army, Mickey B, and Scala LD. Hey, that rhymed. Also, the Patreon should be fixed by now. It should be set to per month instead of per video. Next episode is another great one, Steven the Sword Fighter. Man, Onion Trade is really just sandwiched between some fantastic episodes.